salute to the family out there, man. Bruce goes over here, man. I appreciate anybody that stopped in. We're gonna talk to a former HBO boxing executive, a producer, man. His name is George Jakovic. I met him the other night on a Drew Titan show. A former HBO excuse me executive, a producer, very very knowledgeable cat, very knowledgeable, very easygoing, man. You know, I felt that it would be really nice to talk to him again. And Trick Nolte was actually is actually who brought him into the scene. You know, Trick Nolte met him on Facebook, and Trick told me about him, and you know, I'm like impressed with Trick, because Trick, you know, Trick is the man. Trick likes to, you know, he likes to bring out the knowledge in boxing. He likes to bring out the former fighters, people that are involved in the sport. And George Jakovic, he was with HBO since 2000. So I'm sure he's going to share a lot of stories here, man. You know, it's good to have him. I want to bring him on, man. This is my friend, my new friend. This is George Jakovic. George, thank you so much for coming on here, man.
No, thank you. You know, we just met the other day on Drew Titan's show, and anytime you have passionate boxing fans talking boxing, I'm there, no matter what.
Well, that's what you got here, man. You know, I think they're going to be filing in a little bit. You know, we got some good people out there already, man. We got my brother MZ, musically zoned boxing, man. We got Mr. Pads. You know, they're filing in slowly. We got Remy in here, man. It's, you know, it's nice to have people that stop in. My brother Iceman, my brother Iceman from New Orleans, Louisiana over here, and he knows we go with that smoke over here, all smoke, man. But our Fistiana, she's a wealth of boxing knowledge, man. You know,
I love it. Boxing fans are. I'm a fan, so I mean, I love it. Boxing fans are like family. Like, you can bond over boxing. You can have fights over boxing too, but they're amazing. Boxing fans are amazing.
They are, George. So, George, let me get started. Can you tell us how you started with HBO? What drove you into that, and boxing in particular? How did you become employed in the sport that we love?
I grew up, and literally, I wanted to be Sugar Ray Leonard. I didn't want to be like him. I wanted to be Sugar Ray Leonard. This was after he was in the Olympics. Sugar Ray was the top pound for pound king. He was the man in boxing, and I fell in love with that dude, and I really wanted to be him. And I fell in love with the sport. I mean, memories of him are the first things I remember about the sport. But ever since then, and you know this, like when I grew up in the 80s, and boxing was on TV every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Big name fights: Marvin Hagler, Larry Holmes, Tommy Hearns, Aaron Pryor, every single weekend. It just got in my blood. And I grew up in Jersey, in Rahway, New Jersey. There was a gym in my town, and I started boxing. It was at the YMCA. I was 12, I think. That lasted 3 months, and the guy left, and there wasn't a lot of boxing gyms around my area. Maybe that's a good thing for me, but I just love the sport. And I ended up going to college. I graduated with a degree in communications, and HBO was my first job. I knew I wanted to do something that I loved, and I loved boxing. And at the time, HBO was it. They were like at the top in boxing. Lo and behold, I got a job there, and I loved it. I traveled the world and told fighters stories and saw fights. It was a great time, and I really did. I loved it. I loved it there. For a boxing fan to have a job there, and my very first job at HBO was watching fights. I had to do something called log the fights, but I was getting paid. I said, "Wait, you're paying me to watch these fights and write a report on them?" So, you know, I was in heaven.
Damn. You know, my dad always told me, if you can get paid for what you love, then it's not work. I mean, everybody knows that saying, but bro, you're a living example of that. You know, someone like me, I think I'd work 40 hours and turn my paycheck over just to do some overtime with you, brother.
Oh, well, you're right. Doing what you love. I tell my kids that I have 3 kids, and it really, when you're having fun at work and you do what you love, it really doesn't feel like work. It's hard. There's been tough projects, but in the end, I'm very happy being in the boxing world on this end.
Now when you got into HBO, how did you just fall into that job? Was there a tough interview process? Did they pick your brain to make sure that you weren't, that you were the real deal? That you had more than that you had a basketball a boxing glove where your brain should
Right.
be, because that's what it takes, bro.
Well, to be honest, I would watch the fights and watch the credits and send my resume. I would pick names off the credit list. I would send my resume, back when you mailed things, I would mail my resume into HBO, which was in New York. So I did that over a couple of years. And one day they called me and they had a short-term job open. I went and interviewed and they liked me. And it was a 3-month job. I was getting paid $100 a day for 3 days a week. I said, can I come every day? They said, sure, but we're only paying you for 3, but you can come every day. So I did that. When the job ended, of course I wanted to stay. And I talked to people. I said, listen, I would love to stay. And I got the old, we loved your work and we don't have a budget right now for you. But in the future, if something opens up, we promise we'll call. Everyone's heard that before with certain jobs. They called Dave Harmon was his name. He was the vice president, I believe, back then. They called me a couple of months later, and I was there for the next 15 years.
Did you have to give you a 2 weeks notice, or were you there, brother?
Well, the sad thing is, I think we talked about this on the show the other day. The HBO execs, they made a plan to get out of boxing long before it ended, which I think it ended 2 years ago, something like that, a couple years ago. So in 2014, me and a few other people were let go. It was their first round of budget cuts. The budget was shrinking every year, and a bunch of us were let go in 2014. Some more people were let go in 2017, and then they ended it a few years later. But, I don't know the corporate world very well, but it was easy to see that the people that make the decisions at HBO, they didn't like boxing the way they used to, and they had decided it was a business decision. It just took a few years to execute. So unfortunately, I was one of the first let go, and then a few years later, they were gone. And it's sad. If you're a boxing fan and you don't miss HBO, I just don't understand you.
HBO after dark. I would close my restaurant up, and I'd be so fortunate to get home around midnight when Marco Antonio Barrera was fighting Nassim Hamad, bro. And it's like, this is for free, and this is when I'm sweaty and I want to take a shower and go to bed. But man, HBO. Now, when would you say HBO was that? Before I do that, let me shout out some people that stopped in, man.
Sure.
L Dog, my brother, thank you for coming in, man. Norris of Lockley, I was on a panel with him last night. Con Shawnery, man. Shy 205, man. Appreciate you coming in. Andrew Charles, my brother the Iceman, always here. And some of these guys, man, I love these guys, because I'll do a show at 6:30 in the morning. I'll bop on here at midnight. And man, I'm always blessed that, they come in, they give me a shout out, give me a thumbs up, whatever it takes to, to give me the energy to maintain, to do this, to call up guys like you, George, man. And I just want to show my appreciation out there, man. Appreciate you all in here. Now, George, tell me when HBO actually was at its peak, when everything was popping. When you went into work, and you want to go to Malaysia, or do you want to go to Africa? When was that time, bro?
Well, when I was there, of course, I'm going to say HBO was still at the top of the list compared to Showtime and everyone else. But really wish I could have been there when Mike Tyson and Sugar Ray and Marvin Hagler and those guys were there. I think at that time, and even Oscar De La Hoya when he started, and I tell people all the time, Mike Tyson made people buy HBO back then. People subscribed to HBO because of boxing, because of Mike Tyson, then because of Oscar De La Hoya. So I think back then it was really, I mean, at its peak, because you knew when fights were on HBO, it was like you had the weekend fights, and if fights were on HBO, they were big. Then if they were on pay-per-view, they were really big. So when I was there, listen, I don't want to bore people with production values, but
nah, bro.
HBO did so much really for boxing. One of my favorite shows that there were two favorite shows that I worked on, and you probably remember the first one back in 2002, I think. I helped come up with the idea for a show called Legendary Nights.
Oh yeah. Jim Lampley, man. Oh,
I mean, it was 12 fights, 12 of the biggest fights in HBO history, and we did short documentaries on them, and that was amazing. You know, that's when you just, I mean, I'm sure you watch those. You know
they're still big. The Legendary Nights. Anybody who hasn't seen those, go search for Legendary Nights, man. And you can say you saw you talked to the producer on Bruce Goes Boxing, Jazz, and More over here, bro.
Well, back then, no, I was a production assistant, but I got to work on all of them. And they were actually right behind me. This right here, you know, they named each one the tale of whatever the fight was, and the Taylor Hagler Hearns. They were so much fun to work on. I mean, again, as a boxing fan, I'm working on these shows and I'm meeting these fighters and I'm helping to interview these fighters.
I can feel the energy coming out of you, brother. I mean, really, man.
It's just I try to I overuse certain words like amazing and incredible, but man, it was so.
But it was. Those are the adjectives you have to use, brother.
So much fun, and 24/7. I got to work on. You know, I worked on the first few as an associate producer, and I got to produce some of those later. Just, you know, I miss HBO just as a fan, let alone it was a place I definitely loved working. And it sucks that they're gone, and it sucks that it happened the way it happened. But I did learn that the corporate world is pretty brutal when it comes down to economics. And I guess they felt that people were no longer subscribing to HBO because of boxing. And not to rag on HBO, but the last few years of HBO, the quality of the fights went down big time. The number of fights went down. So, you know, it was like the execs were just cutting the cord slowly and letting every drop run out until they said, that's it, we're done.
Just watching that castle crumble piece by piece,
but they did it. But they did it. It wasn't like look, Showtime is still going strong. They're still going strong. Boxing doesn't die. It's on Fox Sports. It's on ESPN. It's streaming. It's on DAZN. There could still be boxing at HBO if the people there wanted it to be there. They don't want it to be there anymore.
It's mystifying to a person like me, and it's very sad for the boxing community because, like you said, that was the reason. When I got cable television, I got HBO and maybe Showtime. Showtime was just coming in back in the early '80s. That's when Don King was leaving HBO, and even. I mean, even saying on his HBO interview, I'm going to Showtime. I'm not going to take this stuff from you, Larry Merchant. And then Floyd did the same thing. And you could kind of see that the foundation was crumbling. But I don't know. It seems like when, the last few years of HBO, the fights were boring. The times were inconvenient. They had a lot of afternoon fights where HBO was pretty much reserved for the big fights. But all in all, man, It's a shame. It's a shame that it's over. But bro, you coming in here and reviving those memories and bringing them back. Now, how about well, I was watching on your channel. You did the special on on James Scott and Eddie Gregory from Rahway of all places, from your backyard. Did you meet James Scott or Eddie Gregory?
I've met Eddie Gregory, now Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, but
Eddie Mustafa Muhammad.
yes, I'm from Rahway, so that prison is 2 miles away from where I grew up. So when I was a kid, I knew who James Scott was. I watched him fight on TV.
Oh.
And to be honest, I think I might have said on the show last week, that story is something that I want to do one day. I never got to meet James Scott. He passed away a few years ago. But it's incredible that they could have fights on TV in a maximum security prison. And the funny thing was, HBO did the very first one. And when I was there, I used to pitch that. Let's do something. Let's do a doc on it or something. And they weren't interested. But HBO did the very first one. Just the story is incredible that at the time, Eddie Gregory was the #1 light heavyweight contender. He went to prison to fight an inmate who James Scott had never beat anyone of note. But Eddie Gregory figured, well, I'm not afraid of prison. I'll go in and beat this guy. And he didn't. And the legend of James Scott was born. And it's amazing that he was able to rise to, I think he got up to a #2 ranking at light heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, the WBA at that point, I think they loved that he was a novelty and he was popular and he had a lot of fans. People tuned into his fights. But I think the organizations started to get scared and say, wait a second, this guy might be a champion. And it's funny because such a dirty, disgusting sport like boxing, I think those execs at the WBA and WBC said, we can't have a champion in prison. Like we can't have that. So they took his ranking away. And once they did that, he lost a few fights and he disappeared. And I really would love to do some kind of a documentary on just how the phenomenon of James Scott happened. I don't know. He was in prison for murder. I wouldn't be interested in doing something on his case. Just the fact that he became so popular in such a short amount of time, and then he was gone, and he got out of prison. And I know he was elected to the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame. And I believe
he did pass away a few years ago.
He did, and I think he had dementia. He wasn't doing well at the end, but there's a lot of stories in boxing, but that was literally in my backyard. Where all of that happened. And then the first place I worked in TV, who broadcast his first fight. So those stories just really drive me. And that one, like I said, I was a kid. I knew who James Scott was, and it was right in my backyard. And it's a story that would never, ever happen today. There'll never be a fight in a maximum security prison today broadcast on Showtime or Fox Sports. It won't happen.
No, I lived through that era, and that's when the light heavyweights were on fire.
Oh,
I mean, you had Rossman, Saad Mohammed, Matthew, Marvin Johnson. I mean, there was a potential champion on every fight. It was
that division. Like we could talk all night just about how strong that light heavyweight division was, and Jackie Lopez, and my God, and then Michael Spinks coming
right on the heels, yeah.
But
and Dwight Braxton, he went into prison too. That's another story right there.
James Scott. James Scott's last fight, I believe, was against Dwight Braxton, who I think he was Dwight Muhammad Qawi by then. But yeah, they were both in Rahway at the same time as inmates.
And they built the whole story around that. Qawi coming back to prison, and I think James Scott had been beaten by Jerry Martin. Yeah. But man, it's funny. I can remember that, but I can't remember my sister-in-law's kids' graduation. Things that I'm supposed to remember. But boxing, bro, it's funny.
Isn't it funny? Like I haven't talked about the light heavyweights in so long, but even though I remember all those guys. I remember all. People talk about Arturo Gatti, and Arturo Gatti was an amazing fighter. If you like Arturo Gatti, YouTube Matthew Saad Muhammad, and
Matthew Saad Mohammed and Yaki Lopez.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Like
bro.
you can't those fights, they're like, you know how you're a boxing guy, so I'm sure you're like me. When you go to a boxing movie, you know the boxing scenes are going to be fake, and there's going to be every single punch lands, and they make these big noises. But with Matthew Saad Muhammad, it was
That was
real.
rock.
I mean, every punch landed on him, and he landed every punch. And man, I mean, again, anyone who likes Gotti, just look up Matthew Saad Muhammad. But that was such a deep talent of fighters in that division. Ugh.
Oh. I was watching Gotti and Ward last night. Now you must have been involved with HBO for that fight.
No,
a little early. That was 97. I guess
no. They fought between 2002 and 2003. That's when they had their 3 fights. I was there. I didn't work the first one. I worked the live fights for the second one and the third one. But I did shoot. I was able to shoot with Gotti. Actually, I think the last fight that he won, he was training in Florida with Buddy McGirt. So I got to meet him and shoot with him. But yeah, the Gotti Ward fights,
was.
There's Morales Barrera, the trilogy. Again,
let me shout out Oscar Prince Boxing, my brother G5 over there. My smoking brother over there, G5. Have, man. Yeah, salute to you, bro. Thank you for coming in, man. As you know, we're talking to my new hero over here, man. George Jakovic, bro. He's got this Jakovic. I'm bro. I blew the name.
No, you listen. You said it right. Trust me. People have said my name a lot of ways, and you said it right the first time. So I give you a lot of props. Hey,
it's been a long day, brother.
I like Fistiana Fights says that would be a good documentary, and I'm assuming they're talking about James Scott. Yes,
yes,
it would, and I think even those are stories that even non-boxing fans would like. And man, there's so many stories in the sport. Yep, there's Fistiana Fights, and that's I've been in love with the sport since I was a kid, and to be honest, I can really remember watching the HBO fights as a kid, and they always did like a 5 or 6 minute feature on both fighters before a fight. And I love that. Even when Mike Tyson was knocking everyone out, there would still be a feature on the guy who was fighting. And it would, those 5, 6 minutes, it makes you root for a fighter if you know their story and why they're fighting, or it might make you root against the fighter, but it makes you get interested. So
now, bro, yeah, I know you did that. You did that pre-fight on Manny Pacquiao before he fought Floyd. Now you got recognized for that one. How was that following Manny around? And I mean, how many hours did you have to record to get a half hour of actual footage?
I met Manny a few times, and the first time I met him, it was before he had the De La Hoya fights and the Mayweather fights. In fact, the first time I shot something with him, I did a piece on Freddie Roach, and it was about his Parkinson's. And I remember in the interview, Manny was in the interview, was there as well. And at the time, Freddie said, yeah, Manny doesn't even know I have Parkinson's. Like, I don't want my fighters to know because I'm okay. And I ended up going to the Philippines a few years later when Manny fought Barrera the second time. We used to do a show called The Countdown Show on HBO. It's just like 24/7. It's So I was in the wild card. We were going to shoot Manny's first day at camp in the gym, which was cool. You're there for he would train in the Philippines and come to Freddie's gym to finish his training. So we're at the gym, we're waiting for Manny, and he's not there. And Freddie says, I don't know what happened. So Freddie finally comes back to us. He says, Manny's not going to be coming today, but, we got the press conference tomorrow and then he'll be here. We said, okay. So the next day there was a press conference for the fight. We're at the gym again. And Freddie says, Manny went to the Philippines. He went home. Because back then, Manny Pacquiao is very religious now. Back then, he wasn't so religious. And I think he was having some issues with his wife. And he literally he was gone. He jetted back to the Philippines. So we were either going to do a show or not. And if we did a show, we had to go to the Philippines. So I went to the Philippines. And what was really incredible. Everyone in the Philippines knew who Manny Pacquiao was. Everyone. Not everyone in America knows who Deontay Wilder is or Floyd Mayweather. Not everyone. Everyone in the Philippines knew who he was. So I got to go there with a crew, and we shot with him for, I think, 4 or 5 days in a place called Cebu City. And the best memory, I've told this story to people I know before, the best memory I have of that is the very first day. We weren't even shooting, but it was my first day there. I went to the gym. Manny was training in a gym owned by Wacky Salud, who I heard he was some kind of gangster in the Philippines.
What was his name?
There, huh?
What was his name again?
Wacky Salud.
Wacky Salud.
Yeah. So nice to us, great guy. So Manny worked out, and when it was over, one of his people came to me and said, "Hey, Manny would like you to come in the back. He'd like to have lunch with you." I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to have lunch with Manny Pacquiao. So I go back there. There's no one in the room, but there's all these trays of food. So I'm waiting for Manny, but I'm also waiting for the 9,000 people that come with Manny Pacquiao. Because there's always a crowd around Manny. Everyone wants to be his best man, So Manny walks out. It was just him. And he sat down and he said, "Please eat." So I wish I would have taken pictures. I wish I would have done something. But for about 45 minutes, I was alone with Manny Pacquiao. And we were just talking about, he was telling me about the Filipino food we were eating. We were talking about boxing. I was just sitting and talking with Manny Pacquiao, just no one else. No one else was there.
How cool is that, bro?
I mean,
how cool is that? Let me shout out Gil Coles, who just stopped in the building, man. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Oh, bro, those stories are so golden, man. And somebody asked you a question. How did the name 24/7? Who came up with that? Hawker Mustang, salute, brother.
Well, the two producers, Jason Hare and Scott Boggins, were the first guys to work on the first few 24/7s. And Jason Hare was he's gone on to he did the Jordan, The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan docuseries. He was the director and the producer of that too. He just had this idea to kind of mix. He and Scott Boggins had an idea to mix boxing with sort of reality TV and really get to know the characters. So the first few were 4 episodes each. And man, listen, Floyd Mayweather was going to be a star regardless, but 24/7 certainly helped him, because if you watch the Mayweather De La Hoya 24/7 or Mayweather Hatton, the characters like Roger Mayweather became a star in those shows. It hadn't been done quite like that. And again, those were so much fun to work on. There were a lot of hard work, but you really got a glimpse inside the training camps and behind the scenes. And I know for me, that's what I'm interested in most. I can watch a guy hit a bag and spar, but when you see what they're like when they're out of the ring, when they're with their family or with their friends, and 24/7 really gave viewers like an inside look. And Showtime does a show called All Access. It's the same premise. You get that behind the scenes look. But yeah, those Jason Hare mainly and Scott Boggins were 2 producers that came up with the concept, and it blew up from there. And someone in your chat said they gave a shout out to Roberto Duran.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone in Panama, I'm sure. I've never been there, but I've been. It's fun. I'm sure everyone there knows Roberto Duran. I've been to Mexico, and not everyone knows Marco Antonio Barrera, which shocked me. I thought everyone knew who, but you're right. Con Shawnery, I love the name. Yes, absolutely. Everyone in Panama knows who Roberto Duran is, no doubt.
Now, did you go to any other countries where huge national stars, they couldn't walk the streets without every kid in the city following them? Were there any other big fighters that you covered like that, or any particular fights that you'd like to share with us that turned out to be like mind blowing moments? I'm sure there's hundreds of them that
there are, but like there's certain moments that stick out. I was with Juan Manuel Marquez in Mexico. He used to train. He did some of his training in the mountains in Mexico. We did a walk through Mexico City where he grew up, just in the barrio, just a really poor section of him and his brother, Rafael. I think his name is Rafael.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And the two of them, they walked us through his old neighborhood. So it was a small crew, maybe three of us. And the Marquez brothers. And as we're walking through the neighborhood, more and more people are coming out. And this was not a place that was probably safe. Now, I can safely say if Juan Manuel Marquez and his brother weren't with us, we would have, that camera would have been gone. All that equipment would have been, my sneakers, I had some Nikes on, they would have been gone. And I even said to him, hey, Juan, because his English was very good, but he didn't feel comfortable speaking it on TV. I said, hey, if you guys weren't here, what would happen? And he just said, bad things. So, like moments like that. I was with. I think you'll appreciate this story. I was in Austria shooting with Vladimir Klitschko. Beautiful, trained in this beautiful place. Emmanuel Stewart was his trainer. So I had met Manny here and there because he was an announcer for HBO 2. So one day he knew we were there. He saw us going to the hotel to get dinner, me and the crew. And he said, hey, guys, come here. I think he was just happy to have some outside people from the camp besides the camp.
Americans.
Right. So I sat down, and there's 10 of us at the table. Great dinner. And again, Bruce, I'm a boxing fan, so I'm saying, man, I'm having dinner with Emmanuel Stewart. But anyway, so the night goes on. We're talking. One person leaves, another person leaves. We're talking. People are kind of filtering out. When the night ended, it was just me and Emmanuel Stewart, and we were talking boxing. And Emmanuel could really make you feel good and make you feel like you knew a lot about boxing. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. But I said, Manny, I'm sorry, but growing up, Sugar Ray was my guy, and I was rooting for him against Tommy. He said, oh, that's okay. I won't hold that against you. I said, yeah, Manny, I love boxing. I used to box when I was a kid, but, the program left town, so I couldn't fight anymore. And he looked right in my eyes, and he said, if I would have trained you, you'd have been a bad motherfucker. Oh my God!
I know that feeling, bro. A feather could have knocked you over after he said that, bro. Yeah, your head was like a beach ball.
Man, I mean, it's those moments that can I tell you a Roger Mayweather story?
Oh, please, man, please.
And this is a story.
Black Mamba.
People that know me, they know this story, but this was when we did 24/7, the first few 24/7s, it was 4 episodes, and it would lead up. We would shoot up until the weigh-in, and the 4th episode would be, I believe, the night before the fight is when it would air. So we were in Vegas. We were doing Mayweather Hatton, and we had a field producer in each camp. One was in Mayweather's, one was in Hatton's. So I knew the guy. I knew them both, but I knew the guy in Mayweather's camp. And I said, his name was Jackson. I said, hey, Jackson, try and set up a dinner with Roger. Like, I have to meet him. Like, we have to meet him. I have to meet him. He said, okay, I'll do it. The night before the fight, we were at some steakhouse on the Vegas Strip, and it was Roger, It was Rafael Garcia. You remember Rafael Garcia? He used to wrap Floyd's hands. He was an old Mexican trainer.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
He was there, and two of Roger's friends, and there were 3 or 4 of us from HBO, including Steve LeMay, who's a great DP, director of photography. So we had this dinner. Now, you remember Roger Mayweather he was famous for saying, people don't know shit about boxing.
Oh,
He
that was
was famous for that.
when he told that to Larry Merchant, bro.
I know. So we sit down, Roger's sitting across from me, and Jackson is sitting next to him, and Jackson says, "Hey, Raj," this guy pointing to me, like, this guy knows more boxing than anyone you've ever met. And I'm in my head, I'm like, oh my God, why did you say that? So Roger looked at me and he cocked his head and he said, "You think you know boxing?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he quizzed me. He quizzed me. It was like 4 or 5 questions. Thank God I got them right. And when I got the last question right, he cocked his head again. He said, and he looked at somebody, said, "He does know boxing." And man, that was another high point. Like, he said that, and like, that was it. Like, I was at the top.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I passed. Roger Mayweather said I knew boxing. We had a great dinner. We parted ways. And have you been to the MGM Grand in Vegas?
I don't think I have. I've been to Vegas a couple of times, and when I was there, there was no boxing going on. I was there for Super Bowl weekend, but I was never there for a boxing weekend. I can imagine how crazy it must have been, but no, I've never been to MGM.
It is
Grand.
crazy, but the MGM. So in the lobby, they have a ring set up whenever they have a big fight. It's not a regulation ring, just a small ring. So I walked in the MGM, and I see Roger sitting by the ring. So I see him, and I said, "Oh, that's my boy. I'm going to see Rod." I just met him a few hours before. I said, "I got to go say hi." So he was on his phone, and I walk up. I was like, "Hey, Raj, how you doing, man?" And he shook my hand. He looked at me. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" And then went down looking at his phone. He had completely forgotten who I was. So, for a second, and I'm glad I didn't have anyone with me, because I would have been bragging like, "Oh, that's my boy. There's Roger." Now, Roger was a fighter for a long time, and it was the night before a fight, so I didn't take it personally that he didn't remember who I was, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I passed the Roger Mayweather boxing quiz, and I don't know how many people he gave it to, but he would point out, if you didn't know boxing, he would point it out, and he said I knew boxing. So, man,
cool, bro.
Yeah,
cool, man.
A lot of good memories at HBO, and that's what I mean. Again, it all goes back to me being a boxing fan growing up, and then having those moments. I was a little different from most of the people that worked there. Everyone there grew to love boxing, but I mean, I literally grew up loving it. So, I'm still in the sport because that's where I want to be. So when I would be in those moments and meeting those guys, those fighters, I would always say to myself, "Man, like, you're sitting in the room with whoever it is, Roger Mayweather or Emmanuel Stewart." Just awesome memories, man. I mean, fun times, and things that I'll never forget.
Oh, HBO. I mean, they were just the fights that they presented earlier before you were employed there. I mean, I didn't have it. They didn't have cable at my home at the time, but like the Aaron Pryor, Alexis Aguayo fight, it was on HBO free for everybody. And today that would be $89.99. I mean, I don't even think they'd even put together a fight like that today.
And it would have been worth every penny too. Every penny.
Yeah. But this weekend they're throwing at us Mario Barrios and Keith Thurman for $80. What's up with that?
No, I have to be honest. The business end of it, I'm sure somehow it makes business sense. It doesn't really make sense to fans. There's a reason why it's a pay-per-view. I don't know what the reason is. I think it's, but nowadays though, there are very few pay-per-views that are worth it. And I saw there was an article saying, you're giving us a pay-per-view of two guys that lost their last fights, because Thurman lost his last fight 2 years ago to Manny Pacquiao. Barrios just lost a fight. So I don't get the economics of boxing and why they have certain fights as pay-per-views. That would be a great primetime fight, like on Fox or a show like that. That's a nice fight that I'd like to see. But and they complain when they say you're not if it's kind of easy to see pay-per-views now if you have a Fire Stick or you can find a stream. People in the industry say, well, you're not supporting the fighters because you're not paying for their fights. But is it really worth paying for?
They're shoving garbage down our throats. And for back in the day, when the fight I was just talking about, when you could see something like Aguayo and Pryor on HBO, and if they would even try to turn the clocks ahead or back and do a pay-per-view like that back in the day, I don't think it would sell 100 pay-per-views throughout the country. Maybe Aguayo and Pryor's family might buy it, but there was just such a plethora, like you said, every Saturday, Sunday afternoons, Tuesday night fights, Friday night fights, and the special ones for HBO and the beginning of Showtime. And did it just, was it too much? First of all, let me shout out my brother, 150 Dream Team, Nordic Warrior, and Santiago stopping in here tonight, man. Thanks for coming in, man.
I love the chat. I love being able to see this, and like I love what everyone's saying.
I know, bro. This is Almond Brown, man. Thank you, thank you, sister, for coming in. This is something I just started a couple of months ago, and I'm fortunate that I like to talk a lot. People kind of put up with me, and I'm just meeting a lot of insiders like yourself that are just so interesting to talk to. With this conversation could be on the phone or it could be on in a Facebook chat room, but we're doing it over here and in front of the fam. They can shoot us questions. I don't know, man. I think that I found this later on in my life over here, bro. I can, I do my Toke, my legal medicine, and bro, you're making my show over here tonight, brother. You're making my show for a long time.
I got to tell you, like talking about boxing to someone who loves it as well. Dude, I could do this. I could do this every single night, and the fact that I can see what the people are saying, it's so cool. It's so cool.
I know. Look, who'd ever thunk this 20 years ago, huh?
There's so much, like when we were growing up, you had to. You remember VHS tapes? I would tape the fights,
bro,
and then play them back. Now you can pull up.
This is how I got my I used to have to buy one of these every month.
You mean like this too, right? Like that. I'm with you.
All right,
I'm with
bro.
you.
You know how we got our entertainment? We had a VCR game, man. Top Rank Boxing. We stuck the VCR tape in and we shook the dice, bro.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a whole different world out there.
But you know what? But what's beautiful today is that you can YouTube almost any fight you want. And I wish that was around when I was a kid. Luckily enough, all the big fighters fought every weekend. Every weekend I was watching boxing. But it's all right there. People can go on their computers and look up Matthew Saad Muhammad and guys like that and fall in love with those fighters. I think one of the flaws at HBO is that the executives sometimes they wouldn't want to look back on history. Because the motto's like don't look back, move forward. And I always thought that was a big mistake. And that's why Legendary Nights was such a success, because you had so many great fights. You can introduce those fights to a whole new audience and maybe make them fall in love with boxing. When I was a producer at HBO, there was going to be a second round of Legendary Nights because there's so many. like Tyson Spinks wasn't a legendary night. Holyfield Foreman was going to be in there. Trinidad Hopkins was going to be in there. And I was going to produce a couple of them. And then it went away. And we were never told why. But every year they talked about doing another round. And they didn't. The history is so rich. And I believe in celebrating the past, because I think if you do that, you can get more people interested in boxing. And I've heard that Showtime may do a series like Legendary Nights, and they should, because they have an amazing library. You know, the Corrales Castillo fight might be the most incredible fight I ever saw in my life. Every single round was like, but they should do something with that library. I don't understand. And I'm probably thinking more as a fan. Like, if I was in charge, we would be doing those things every year, shows like that.
And the Tuesday Night Fight series is not available on the internet. Nobody can find any of the Sean O'Grady and Marv Albert.
I talked to a guy, I forget his name, but he was involved in Tuesday Night Fights. They have made it their purpose to take all of those fights off. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if they plan on doing something, because they could do something too. All the fights that they have in their library. But you're right, you cannot find those fights. And if some slip through, they get pulled, which is a shame. Maybe they have some plan to do something with them, I hope. But we'll see. Yeah, I love see, Con Shawnery, that's a smart person. YouTube is incredible. You can traverse history and absorb it. And you can just, you can look up any of the fighters we talked about, and it's right there in front of you, and you can get transported back in time, and you're right there. And some of those old fights, they're clearly taken from someone's VHS, and they'll even have the commercials in between rounds.
Yeah,
didn't edit out, and you get to see those too. So yeah, it's a different time.
Do you think boxing might be shooting itself in the foot today, the way it's being fed to us? Because I know, like, when they have a DAZN fight, it'll start around here at like 1 p.m. on a Saturday, but there'll be like so many fights they'll throw in there. And I mean, back in the day, they'd have the main event and possibly a co-feature, maybe a little more, but usually it was pretty much stuck to to the marquee fighters that they'd show, and nobody would get impatient. I think now the way they show those entire cards, unless you're a diehard boxing fan, you're watching 4-rounders and 6-rounders, and most of them they're setups, they're 1 or 2 round blowouts. And I think that turns a lot of people off, waiting around till 5 till the main event happens. So yeah. and then you'll go come to America, and they'll pretty much do the same thing. You get an ESPN card, it'll be on. You'll be able to watch it on Showtime. Excuse me, on YouTube until the ESPN Plus comes on. It's right. Confusing, and frankly, I think it bores the hell out of most people. Those watching some of those fights where names you've never heard of, you probably never will hear of. I don't know. Do you think boxing is really in the toilet right now, like I think it is?
I think there are some people out there who really, they'll watch any fight, and they love to see those. There's something to be said for seeing the up and coming guys, but you're right. A lot of those fights, they're not even up and coming guys. They're just guys that might not have a future. I don't know. It's a different day. It's a different day. I think that people have to change. A lot of people, when DAZN came out, they would call them telephone fights. They literally thought they could only see the fights on their phone. But if you have a smart TV, when I watch DAZN, it's on my television. It's just a different way of doing fights. They're no longer on. There's really no such thing as free TV anymore. Period. So
Fact.
it's
You have to pay some service. You can't just
right,
plug it in and put the antennas up anymore.
right. I mean, literally, when we grew up, it was TV was free.
Free.
You paid for the TV, but the channels, everything was free. You have to pay for everything now, so it's a different day. You know,
But you know
when
what I'm
young,
saying? You know what I'm saying, George? I think that the fans are actually settling for for second class fights. You know, they kind of accept. Well, he's not ready for him yet. I don't want to. I don't think he should lose that. Oh, that's matching him up too tough, bro. Sugar Ray Leonard days. Did they match Sugar Ray and Leonard up too tough? You bet your ass they did. But he's shown. I mean, he was fighting Floyd's father, Floyd
right,
Mayweather Sr. And
right.
in my hometown, bro. I saw that fight in '78, and like you said, man, you're a hero. I saw Bruce Lee style speed in there. And Floyd Sr. I think he was ranked number 4 or number 5 by
He
Ring
was a good
Magazine.
fighter.
But Sugar Ray just so talented. But that was why World of Sports material.
You know,
What,
maybe I, I've heard that it's funny with pay-per-views. You never know how many people really buy them. The only time they release a number is if it's some staggering number, and they're quick to put it up there. It's very hard to get numbers on pay-per-views, but I've heard that the Jake Paul pay-per-view supposedly did bad. The Tank Davis pay-per-view supposedly didn't do well. So when it comes to pay-per-views, the only way a boxing fan has any say is whether or not to buy the fight. My Richard Schaefer allows me to post HBO fights. Maybe that's the with a pay-per-view, that's how a boxing fan's either going to not buy it or stream it illegally, which happens a lot. So,
how do you think they would market somebody like Sugar Ray Leonard today? Would he be held back, or would he just would he be like a Canelo, except people would
yeah,
respect him
I
more?
think that when you have those generational talents like that, no matter what era they were in, they were going to rise to the top. Marvin Hagler and guys like that, they were going to rise, and those guys would have done the same thing today. See, like Hawker Mustang, I used to watch all the undercards. It's funny. They would give us tickets when we did 24/7. I went to the De La Hoya Mayweather fight and Mayweather Hatton. They would give us tickets, good tickets. I would be one of the few. I would get there when the doors open, and when there's literally like 15 people in the crowd, and you can hear every punch, and then you see the arena fill up. I'm one of those guys, but I can tell you, as much as I love boxing, if it's not a good fight or a fighter I'm interested in, I won't just watch any fight. There's some people out there, they can tell you who the minimum weight champion is in boxing. I can't do
Oh,
that. I can't
probably
do
in this
that.
chat room.
Right. And I respect that.
Oh,
I
I admire the hell out of
some
that.
people are true boxing historians and true, like they know every division, every champion. Like you have to have like a physics degree now to know every champion in boxing. But yeah, I'm one at the live fights. I was one of those guys. I would get there before the doors open. Oh, I just thought of another memory. Can I get it in?
Oh, please.
So I was working the Lennox Lewis Mike Tyson fight, which was at the Pyramid, I believe, in Memphis. So
Okay.
my job for that fight was I was called the round AD. I had to let me just plug my Bruce, let me just plug my so my computer doesn't die. There we go.
Not a problem, bro.
So I
The
was the round
pyramid.
AD. What I had to do was, if you watch any fight, you see there's the clock in the corner, counting down the round. So I usually, from the HBO production truck, it was linked to the clock at ringside electronically. In Memphis, it wasn't. So they sat me next to the timekeeper ringside. I had a headset on, and I was in touch with the truck. So if the referee called time, I would just have to tell the truck, take the clock out. And when I knew there's a minute 30 left in round 3, then they would get it back in. So that was my job for that fight. And I remember very clearly about that fight. The arena didn't fill up until right before the main event. and you could feel that. I mean, there's a heavyweight title fight, Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson, even though everyone knew Tyson was on his way out at that point, but the energy in that place was insane. So as the night went on before that fight, the timekeeper in Tennessee, he had this old watch. You know the show 60 Minutes? You see the stopwatch that they would have on 60 Minutes? He had a watch like that. And I had a digital watch. And what I noticed was his rounds were lasting like 3 minutes and 15 seconds.
Really?
Which that's it. You know, it's significant. Things could happen in that time that shouldn't. So at some point in the night, I told him, "Hey, listen, your watch is off." He said, he was an older Tennessee guy with a Southern drawl. He was like, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah, you know, if you want to use my watch, go ahead." He said, "I don't know how to use that thing. Let's just go by your watch." So I was the unofficial timekeeper for the Lennox Lewis Mike Tyson fight. I literally had so he was watching my watch. If there was a timeout, I would stop it. Then he would say, "Okay, time in." I would start it. He would ring the bell, looking at my watch. And, you know, my friends know this, but I was the unofficial timekeeper for Lewis Tyson. At the end of the night, I had some of Tyson's blood on I had a notebook with me, but I was the unofficial timekeeper for that fight, you know. And
That's a gem, bro. That's a gem. Shout out to my brother D-Hay out there, man. Blaze up, my bro. You know that, man. And Coco in the building, man. Thanks for coming in, bro. Man, I'll tell you, man. You're dropping them out here. That was incredible. And you know that pyramid. I think that's a bass and tackle shop right now. I really do. I think they use the pools in there to artificial fish. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, that wasn't supposed to be the destination. You remember Tyson attacked Lewis at a press conference, and he couldn't
I'm gonna eat your children. Praise Allah.
Yes, he couldn't get a license in New York. He couldn't get a license in Vegas. So Tennessee said, "Hey, come here and do it here." So, you know, that's why the fight was there.
You know, and it's so funny you mentioned that, because that goes back to Ali and Jerry Quarry, where he couldn't get a license anywhere but Georgia.
And of course, that was under a whole different set of circumstances.
But it's just amazing how the states have their own commissions, and they don't honor the other a suspension from another state. It just kind of it's part of that stink of boxing right there, bro.
That's the problem. That, I mean, anyone will tell you there's no unifying organization. You're right. Everyone has their own rules, and every state has their own rules. Oh, you don't want to do it in Vegas? Come to my state. Come do it here.
Yeah, we'll go to Tennessee.
Yeah. So yes, and that could be a whole other show about how boxing just is slimy and dirty and it sucks. But you know, I try to.
But it's like that. It's like that cheating mistress. You know, a sap like me with a face like this, we're going to take her back, bro. You know, and we're going to she's going to break our heart again. And
right.
And that's my mistress boxing right there, bro. Hey,
right.
somebody asked
I
earlier.
hear you.
Somebody asked earlier about Bob Arum, what's going on with Bud Crawford. Yeah, you have any opinion on that? Anything you want to share with us?
I don't. I've met Arum a few times. You know, I don't know him. I know some people at Top Rank who I'm friends with. Look, Bob Arum has said some dumb ass things over the past 10 years, but he gets away with it because he's an old man, and they say he's a cranky old man. And is he a racist? I honestly, I don't know. I was shocked when Terrence Crawford re-signed with him a few years ago. I thought he was on his way out. You know, unfortunately, lawsuits and boxing go hand in hand. So I can't say firsthand if Bob Arum, you know, I've never been in his presence and he's made some derogatory remark. He certainly said a lot of things he probably regrets to the press and about Terrence Crawford. So it's unfortunate. And Terrence Crawford probably could have helped himself a little more. I know when he was with HBO, it was tough to have him do interviews, because that's part of it. You have to drum interest up in yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
He's much better at it now. It's unfortunate that it got to that point, and we'll see how it plays out. But I don't have any stories where I could say, Arum did this, Arum did that. I mean, certainly what Arum will say is, I was with Muhammad Ali back in the 60s and the 70s, and I helped him with his career. And so it's unfortunate, but look, this is boxing, and in the end, boxing is a very dirty sport, and there's not a lot of loyalty. And that's why the thing I love the most about boxing are the fighters and the fights. All that other stuff, I don't care. The organizations. I mean, don't you? How many fighters have you seen that have a hard time walking, have a hard time talking? And I see it in young fighters too. Younger, when I say young, third guys 35, 36, they have a hard time talking. This sport, man, it spits you up, it chews you up and spits you out. There's no pension, there's no health insurance, there's nothing. There's nothing. And it's just, man, fighters going broke. And Donald Curry broke my heart maybe a few months ago. Donald Curry was the man at 147 back in the late 80s. He took over for Sugar Ray, and his son posted a tweet. You may have seen it, about his dad and how his dad's not doing well. He thinks he's suffering from CTE, and he's got no money, and he's got problems. And I heard the WBC was going to help him, and that's great. Why don't all these organizations get together and have something on the books to help these fighters? Don't just pick and choose which ones you're going to help. It's a tough sport, and the fighters are the ones that pay the ultimate price in the end. Fans, we complain, yes, they take our money, and fights that aren't worth it, we have to pay for it. But those fighters, the ones that entertain us, they're the ones that suffer in the end.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
I was speaking to a boxer yesterday. I don't want to give his name, but he's fought everybody, and he told me that I have CTE. I have a really hard time remembering things. Take my number down, and when you call me, make sure you tell me Bruce goes boxing, jazz, and more, because I forget things. And it was like just so tragic, because I know how these guys could have millions and they give it away, and then they go out and they look for a $20 bill, and people shun them. But see, it's not now. It's because of social media. The past generations, these guys just kind of faded into the background. They didn't have any. They didn't have any way to let it be known, the situation. But now we're starting to get a little more educated because of social media, and we're saying, why don't they have a union for these guys? Why don't they have a pension fund? But now the way things are, if they started a union, how corrupt would that be? We're a sport that follows organizations like the WBC, the WBA. Their presidency is passed down from father to son, and they mandate who the fighters are going to fight, and we follow them. We bitch and we hem, but yet we do what they tell us to do. How fucked up is that? How fucked up is that, George? Man,
it is. I won't name names of the fighters either, but I ran into a fighter not that long ago who was a champion not too long ago, like 5-6 years ago, but his speech pattern is different. It sounds almost like he has marbles in his mouth. That's from boxing, and he's a young man. He's 34, 35. They pay a price for what they do. And look, I'm not talking about a fighter who, if a fighter had 3 fights, do they deserve a pension? No. We're talking about fighters who had a career in the sport and took a lot of punishment in the sport. And I wish I had the answer. Oh. Maybe someone does have the answer, but boxing doesn't want to listen, because it would take money out of their pockets, the powers that be. A lot of fighters, look, and they're grown men and women. Some of them literally they have blown their money. They have not listened to any good advice. They have blown their money. That's different now. But you wish that happens to a lot of athletes, a lot of people. But just talking about the health of fighters, there's a lot of fighters that need help, and I think it's hard for them to find it. There's a trainer, a former fighter named John Scully.
Oh, yeah, I know John Scully. John Scully is a great guy. John Scully's going out of his way to help fighters, man.
It's
Oh,
incredible. It's incredible. And anyone, follow John Scully, Scully. He's on Instagram and Facebook.
Iceman.
The Iceman, former pro fighter, great guy, a lot of funny stories, but he's going out of his way to get guys like Wilfred Benitez and Gerald McClellan money.
People that they're mentioning in the chat.
I salute him, but I just wish that the WBA and the BC, all these organizations that make a lot of money, why aren't they doing something? And if they are, like, put it out there. Let us know about it. Don't just decide to help this fighter, yet 10 more could use help. John Scully doesn't get paid a dime, and John Scully goes out of his way to help fighters who need it. And I have a picture somewhere around here. He had 10 Emil Griffith signed pictures, and I bought one because I knew that John could be trusted, and that money was going to go to whatever fighter needed it. You see what I mean about great stories in boxing? Like, they're everywhere. They really are. And even among all this shit, all the bad stuff, a guy like John Scully and other people who are helping fighters, and Gerald McClellan. We all know that the boxing people know that story. His sister, I believe her name is Lisa McClellan. Yeah. I've never met her. I would love to meet her and love to just hug her, because she literally, her life is taking care, and other family members taking care of him. And they rely on certain.
He gets nothing from the life that he gave boxing. $200 a month, something insulting like that. Hey, shout out to Kui out there, man. Thanks for coming in, Kui. Boxing Conversation with Reggie Owens is here, man. Sliding counter.
Have you had Con Shawnery on your show?
No, I've never spoken to Con Shawnery. I've seen Con Shawnery all the time. I see him at Mad Chad's. He comes to see me. I see him all over the place.
Like, he's popping up. Like, I'm not
crazy, bro.
I mean, not to ignore other people, but man, I mean, again, we could do a show just on the people that make comments, because I see the people that follow you, they know what they're talking about, and they're passionate.
Oh, man, I feel so blessed to have these people, because I just started doing this 2 months ago, and I've got about 350 people that have subbed to me, and when I'll do a live, I mean, I'm like a whore, bro. I start doing 2 or 3 of them a day now. It's crazy. I live on the Bay. I show my sunrise. I've done that. The other day we had a Northeaster on Martin Luther King Day, Muhammad Ali's birthday. Yeah. And I live on a bay, but you could have surfed out there. It was so crazy.
Wow.
And then I was on another panel. We did a tribute to Ali. I mean, it's just so much, so good out here. Such a wealth of knowledge. And a lot of these guys, they just kind of hide in the chat room. We drop links, but a lot of them, they don't pick up the links, and some do, but it's, bro. Yeah. You join the family out here, man. Because it's like television. What's that? I get up and turn YouTube on.
Right.
The latest news is on YouTube. You can get whatever that they're shoveling to you on CNN. You can go to a better source over here.
Exactly.
So and boxing, forget about it. Once the shows start up, once the lives start going on, even I even throw it on my phone and put the earbuds on. I take the dog for a couple of miles, a couple of times a day, and it's like it's my companion, and it's beautiful, bro. It's so good to have you here, George, man. And if you see these guys out here, tell them go sub. Go sub to George's channel if you want to drop your link out there, if you can do it. If not, George Jakovic, man.
I mean, my last name is spelled Jakovic, and if you it's on the screen, and I mean, if you do that on YouTube, you'll come to my channel. Listen, I think you and I are the same. We don't get tired talking about boxing. And I
Yeah.
literally, when I'm talking boxing, I don't look at my watch and say, well, 5 more minutes and I'm out. One of the first fights I traveled to for HBO, I knew just by seeing people, I knew who Harold Letterman was. He didn't know me. Like I saw these guys on TV all the time. So I met Harold Letterman, the unofficial judge. He's passed away. But I met Harold at one of the first fights I went to. I was going to an elevator, and Harold was there. And I said, Harold, hey, my name's George Jakovic. I just started working here. It's great to meet you. We talked for about 3 hours at that elevator, and I think I had a stack of papers. I had something to do because I was a PA. We talked for almost 3 hours. He didn't know me, but we talked about boxing he was talking to Harold was, oh man, I love that guy. And even when I left HBO, Harold kept in touch with me, and he kept in touch with me all the time. It must be on YouTube somewhere, but I helped to do a feature. We did a story on Harold Letterman. So I went to his house. He lived in Orangeburg, New York, and we spent like a day with Harold. He was a pharmacist. Let me tell you, Harold's house, every inch of his living room was covered with a poster or a picture of him with, you name the fighter through history. It was him. That guy was a fan. He was a great judge back in his day. He loved boxing, and I got to meet guys like Harold. I could say Harold Letterman was my friend, and how I always say I'm very lucky to have got in the sport that I love. And even a few years ago, I was doing a show for Fox. It was Devin Alexander fought Ivan Redcatch a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, Devin was training with Roy Jones on his farm in Pensacola. I had met Roy before, but I'd never been to his farm. So I was there for 3 or 4 days watching Roy train Devin and other fighters, and I got to see how Roy's life has changed. He has fighters that stay on his property. They revere him and they love him, and he every day he was out there talking to his guys. And it didn't go so well with Devin, unfortunately, but I got to spend time with Roy Jones on his farm and talk boxing. So, and Roy Jones, I love Sugar Ray Leonard. When Roy Jones was in his prime, he was as close to Superman. He was like Superman. He lost the fight to Montel Griffin. He was DQ'd for, which was kind of BS. Then he knocked him out 1 round in the rematch. Roy Jones was like Superman. And when he went up to heavyweight, imagine, you wish that life was like a movie and it could end at a certain time. And if Roy stopped when he fought Ruiz, like that's the perfect ending. Unfortunately, it didn't end like that. But when Roy was in his prime, he was Superman to me. Like he couldn't be beat. He was the man.
He was one of those dudes on HBO After Dark. I mean, when he fought James Toney, I thought Tony was going to hand him his first loss, man. James Toney, after he knocked out Michael Nunn, who is this guy?
So did I. I'm sorry. I keep throwing out, like, I keep thinking of things. Like, I'm asking you, I hope I'm not taking too much time.
Bro, are you kidding? No, man. This is where I want to be, man. I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate the people hanging out and asking their questions. I just wish I was a little more technically savvy, but this you're in my living room, man. I got my boxing junk behind me.
You're as savvy as you need to be. You have a show on YouTube. You have a computer?
Bro, I'm from the generation where we went into elevators. There had to be a guy standing there in a general's uniform pressing buttons. You know what I'm saying?
What was? Oh man, now I'm blanking out on the fighter.
I do that.
There's a middleweight from. It'll come to me. Kelly Pavlik from Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah.
I went to Youngstown when he was fighting. I don't remember who he was fighting, but we went to Youngstown. We were doing a piece on him, and I got to meet Boom Boom Mancini. And now
I got somebody in the background, man. Just came in, man. Brian Robinson, Tim Witherspoon's business manager. I'm gonna get him in here. Finish that story, George, and then we'll talk a little more. Is that okay, brother?
Yes,
All
yes.
right, man.
I got
my
to
friend
meet
Brian Robinson over here, man.
Hey, Brian.
That's Tim
I'm all
Witherspoon.
dark over here. I got to figure out my lighting. My face is going. Let's see.
We can hold up on Boom Boom Mancini if we're about to get Tim Witherspoon.
No, it's just me, brother.
That's okay, bro. You're cool, Brian, man. Brian's Tim Witherspoon's business manager, man. He loves boxing. He's trying to help Tim. He's trying to help other boxers who maybe maybe the fans have forgotten. But man, God's blessed me to bring Brian into my life, man. And Tim Witherspoon, good dude. I'm proud to have him stop on the show, bro. And George Jakovic, man, former HBO producer, executive, man. He knows boxing. He knows the fighters, dude. I feel humbled. I feel like the third wheel over here, bro.
Listen, Brian, I loved Tim Witherspoon. I was a huge, that was the era, like, that was kind of a forgotten era. After Larry Holmes, there was Greg Page and those guys. They're kind of forgotten, but Witherspoon. Man, I was a big fan of his. I remember when he fought Larry Holmes, and I thought he beat Holmes. I thought he won that fight.
Tim does too.
Was he a two-time heavyweight champion?
Yeah,
2 times.
Man,
he could have been more, but that's a whole nother story. And I'd really like to put you, George, I popped in here just to meet you, because what I'd like to do is get you and Tim talking maybe on here. Because you guys were talking about a union, right? Even though a union's, could probably be as corrupt as anything else. But
listen, anytime, Bruce, you have my info, so please pass it to Brian. Man, are you kidding me? You're asking me if I would talk to Tim Witherspoon? Of course I would talk to Tim Witherspoon. Anytime.
And if anytime. You want, we can exchange. I can give you my phone number. You can we'll get you connected with the champ, Bruce. We could either do one on your show, however you guys want to set that up.
I don't care.
Hey man, if I can be the catalyst here, whatever you dudes want, I'm glad I can bring people together on here. It's in the boxing community. This is what I think. This is what I was bred for. The only thing I found out about it a little too late.
Yeah, well, that's all of us. It's called wisdom, brother. It's earned at the end of the whip in life, man.
And Brian,
I'll live those dessert years though.
Tim Witherspoon's another one of those guys that look, Bob Arum, Don King, I'm not saying anything new. They made a lot of money off these fighters, money that they shouldn't have made. And Tim Witherspoon was one of those guys with Don King. And it's heartbreaking when you hear about stuff. But I told Bruce, I watched Bruce had Tim on recently, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Tim sounds sharp, man. He sounds good. He looks healthy.
Yep.
I love
freak
him.
Of nature physically. When you look at him in person, it is from behind, he looks like he's a 25-year-old like linebacker. His build is just, people don't have that type of body. You can see the man is designed to be a warrior. Like, he was a really up and coming football player before an injury, and then he got into boxing. He just is genetically superior to most people when it comes physically. And at his age, is ridiculous the fitness he has. It's ridiculous.
And he sounds sharp too. A lot of fighters, they get punched in the head for a living. He sounds like he's good. Like his health is good.
Oh, he's like he's getting really into now doing all this commentating and all of these things. And at first he was kind of insecure, like maybe I won't say the right man. We just did a 2-hour documentary today. A company came down from New York just to video the whole thing, 2 hours, and he was going on. And Bruce will tell you, Tim will get going. If he could have kept him there another hour, he would have done it. And it's story after story after story. I mean, I know things. I shared like one story with Bruce. It's a forever secret now until Tim decides it's not. But I mean, we have there's so many stories. And one thing I'd like to say that you're doing that you may want to be involved with. We're trying to help Mitch Green out. He's in a really bad place. You know, I don't want to go into details because it's his business, you know, but a lot of things have happened to him in life and put him in a position right now where I think we're trying to, Tim put a video out to Mike saying, Mike, come on, we got to help this guy out, make friends, make peace. And he needs his fans. And if I were to say anything, Mitch Green needs his fans.
Yeah. Anything I would, I'm all in when it comes to helping the fighters. You know, like Bruce and I were talking about. Look, a lot of fighters have blown their money, and a lot of it is their fault. But a lot of fighters were robbed. Yeah. A lot of fighters have health issues, and they have nothing now, and they get no help. You know, what Tim was a WBC heavyweight champion. Now, when he had to defend his title, the WBC certainly took their money. They took their sanction fees every single time. Why can't these organizations help fighters when they need help when they're no longer fighting? They're just forgotten. They're just forgotten, and let's get the next wave of fighters in.
Let me shout out my brother, Mr. Mechanical, out there. Now, I just want to throw a little appreciation for another brother, Mr. Mechanical, who stopped in, man. Thanks for coming in, bro. Salute. Go ahead, guys, man. I just want to keep expressing my gratitude when people come in, man, because, you know, if it were, we could be on a three-way call, but yet, we're basically talking to the potential to talk to billions of people out here, and to get the things where the things that are bugging us, man. Maybe they can get solved. Maybe somebody will hear it. Maybe because we're talking about unions and pensions, bro. If the established fighters can help, can trickle down, and maybe help some of the fighters that are down and out, like Mitch Green, and well, if we can do that's the power that we have, because financially, bro, if I hit the Powerball in the next couple of days, I think it's 400 million. I'll open up the biggest, nicest ranch for retired boxers you've ever seen. But I mean, that's I might as well keep my $5 and donate it to somebody. But bro, I mean, that's the power that potentially that we have in groups like this, man.
I agree, and it's still sad that as much as a lot of people are doing to help fighters, that there's no official boxing organization that's helping the fighters. I've never really gotten an answer why. Oh yeah, boxing. Glad I spoke of Gerald G-Man McClellan. Yeah, McClellan. Guys like that. Gerald McClellan should have more help financially with his medical issues than he has. And we spoke earlier about how his sister is his caretaker, and she's given up her life to take care of him. And that's everything. And you just wish that there was more help from boxing, from the organizations. I don't understand it. And you can't really give me no one can give a good answer on that, because there should be help.
Maybe we could start some type of charity organization where we run into a situation where we discovered Mitch. Like, Mitch is hid away. He's been out of limelight, hidden, and he's rediscovered. And there's a way we can get right to him and get him the whatever he needs. We can get it right away. The fans can. Corporate America is really a lot of times the problem. Politicians, all of them, because they got what they got and they all disappeared. But we, the fans, we can be connected because of this thing, the internet. Guys like Bruce can pull people together, and we can do it ourselves, and then we can do the fundraising, get the corporate sponsorships on the other end, where a good corporation wants to help lift them up. Whatever X is,
I agree, and I'm all in on that. And I just think that people should make it a point to have the organizations held not accountable, but they should be doing something as well. I'm looking at this quote by Con Shawnery. Man, I remember, and you would know this better, but when Tim fought Bone Crusher Smith, he had already beaten Bone Crusher before. And from what I remember, Tim Witherspoon just mentally he had been robbed so much that he just fought Bone Crusher and he wasn't even there. He was in the ring, but he wasn't there, and he got knocked out.
Oh,
And
Tim told us the story about that, bro. Tim took the dive. He told us in front of on the show.
He wasn't interested, and
Nah.
you found out later the backstory about how he was just like defeated, man, like being robbed. And
yeah, shout out to my brother Stormy B, man. You know, I'm sorry that I keep yelling those out, but you know this old guy, bro. If I don't get those thoughts out when they come to my head,
no, don't.
And
I
bro,
mean, I'm trying to shout
I
out some of
certainly
these guys
don't want to
too.
neglect anybody that comes in here, man. John McSmith, bro. Salute for coming in, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, one of my best memories of Tim was when he fought Frank Bruno, and that fight was in England, and I'm pretty sure it was on HBO as well. I wasn't with HBO, but I'm pretty sure that people wanted Bruno to win that fight. You know, I mean, you got an American defending his title. I'm sure the money was good, but Tim went and he took care of business and he knocked Bruno out. And I was always a Tim Witherspoon fan, always.
And you know, it's funny. He's got so many.
You're in the right place for that.
He's got so many fans in the UK. It's ridiculous. Like when I look at our algorithm on our YouTube channel, like they're second to the United States, and you know, like 30% of our subscribers and our viewers are coming out of the UK. And he goes over every year. Just 2 years he hasn't been able to go, and you know, financially he was always trying to struggle to get ahead. But I think now with the YouTube channel and we're doing seminars and we have a lot of big plans, we'll be able to move him forward financially, because he just needed to know how to understand to use who he was to promote himself and you know, market who he was. He's very marketable, highly marketable.
Hey, let me shout out my brother. Let me shout out my brother Stormy B, man, who stopped in here, man. And Johnny Blaze, man. John Blaze, hashtag CCD. Shout out. Jeff Lucietta just came in the building too, man. I mean, you know, you guys are dragging him in here, man. You know, you guys are magnets to boxing fans, and I appreciate both of you coming on. And
well, I see D-Ray Promotions say,
jazz and more, man.
D-Ray Promotions say y'all need black management. Look, I mean, what fighters need is good management, black, white, whatever. If they truly have people who are looking after them, then that's what they need. There just needs to be better people in boxing. And I don't mean, I'm not bashing people that are in boxing, but as much as we love the sport, it's tough to see some fighters after their careers are over that not only have nothing financially, but physically and mentally, like they're just at such a deficit. And it's sad to see, but you know, there's so many forgotten fighters, and I don't know if promoters and organizations just say, well, you know, you sweep the old away, and whoever's making the money now, that's who we care about, and the past is the past. And it's very unfortunate. In other sports, the legends are celebrated, and they're not. Boxing is a different sport, obviously, but they're not as celebrated in boxing as they are in other sports, and it's too bad. It's too bad.
Well, I think these forums are going to change that. At least that maybe I'm being very optimistic, but I think this type of stuff is where that can change. Somebody like Tim, who was also kind of hidden away for a long time, can now reach out to all his fans, exiting that whole corporate gatekeepers, and you know, all these people were like, they were the ones who decided, you know, the media and these corporations decided, these managers, who was going to excel after their career and some who didn't. And, you know, something like this, Tim can reach right out to the fans. He can go right to Bruce, right to you and the people in the forum right now and say, hey, do you want what I have to offer? Do you want to see me? What do you want from me? And there's no gatekeepers anymore, because they did a bad job. They waited till some of these people are completely like Mitch. It's sad. The state he's in right now is heartbreaking. And Tim almost cried. He was just talking to his old, because they were very close. They were very good friends. And, Tim wants to do a fundraiser because Tim, unfortunately, if he had the money, he'd be flooding Mitch with it. And Mitch struggling with some things too. So we have to kind of go slow with him to reach out to him because of the bad things that happened in the past. He's not very trusting of anyone. Right. So we have to break those barriers down. And I appreciate.
What did you tell me was the first thing? What did you tell me was the first thing on his answering machine?
Well, that may have been Tim.
Okay, yeah, it's like don't bother me. I don't do interviews.
Oh, well, yeah, no, that was on. I'm sorry, that was on his Facebook. On his Facebook,
okay.
I do not do interviews or whatever, and that was what Tim. We had found him, and Tim had wrote to him. And there was a person that kind of holds that account because Mitch doesn't have a computer and doesn't use a cell phone. He has a landline, and his total state we're not sure of exactly the conditions he's living in. But like I said, we're going to reach out. We're gonna get in front of Mitch. Tim did talk to him multiple times on the phone, and we need the boxing world to reach out and help him. We're growing. Unfortunately, we don't yet have that platform to bring 10,000 people together to do a GoFundMe for him. But maybe we all can put the word out. And I don't know what X is. And yeah, Tim's going to try to get in touch with Mike because he's friends with Mike. And but Mike is obviously tough to get a hold of, and see maybe Mike can do something. His platform, bring Mitch on his show, or whatever, because that would be huge.
Well, that's what these boxers need, guys like you, Brian, because you're a hustler, bro. You know how to bring the green in. It's not just in those four corners, bro. I mean, there's other ways to for these guys to still make a living off their notoriety. And that's what we're trying to do, man. We're trying to give them their flowers while they're still with us, and let them live comfortable lives, because there's no pensions. They're not getting that monthly check like the guy who works for 40 hours a week and never felt never felt that punch. Never had to get up at 5 a.m. and hit the road. I mean, not to realize how much dedication goes in there, and then when you're done, people don't even want to hear your name anymore. And bro, that's what we're doing out here, man. And
and there's a lot of people who just love. I mean, absolutely love boxing, and I'm one of those people. And I can tell you, Roy Jones years ago fought at Radio City Music Hall. It was the first fight ever at Radio City Music Hall. I think he fought David Telesco. So it was big. It was something different. And I remember going to I didn't go to many of these, but I went to the after fight party, and there were a lot of actors there. Samuel L. Jackson, and there were a lot of rappers there, a lot of musicians. When my eyes lit up is when Iran the Blade Barkley walked in. That's when it was cool to see this actor, but when Iran Barkley walked in, I was like, oh, there's the Blade. Like, there's the Blade. And to me, that's when when guys like he walked in, and by then his career was done. And I got to meet Barkley a few times at HBO, but there's a lot of people that love boxing that I think would help. But again, the WBA, the WBC, the WBO, the IBF, why aren't they helping when all they do is create more champions? Because more champions means more revenue. People say, why are there so many champions? Because they make money off every single belt. And more champions means more money in their pocket. So, I don't know. I'm with you, though. I mean, I would always do anything I can, but I just don't get why there's not more help.
Hey, let me shout out my brother Big Duke, man. Big Duke from Fourth Quarter Talk. That's my
Big
co-host.
Duke.
We do a fitness and nutrition. You guys are gonna have to meet Big Duke. Big Duke's in the business, bro. His heart is in it. His life is in it, man. We do a show on Friday afternoon, 6:00, Fourth Quarter Talk. We talk about fitness, nutrition, weight training, bro. Because man, I'm 67 years old, bro. I'm relying on guys like Big Duke to get me to see 77 and beyond, bro.
Nice.
And it's my background. I've got a background in health and nutrition, weight training. Duke has got the background, and we get together. And Duke, thanks for coming in here tonight, man. I just wanted to shout you out. And the lost art of boxing, bro. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it, man. It's a great talk over here tonight, man. We got some real boxing minds over here. I feel like I said, bro. I'm just the host. I'm serving the drinks. I'm bringing the pretzels. You've got boxing knowledge. You've got business knowledge, and man, I'm glad I could host the program, bro.
Look, I told you before. I told you the night we met on that show. If we're talking boxing, I'm there. I don't care. I don't care what time it is. I never get tired of talking boxing. When you have something, that's for anyone who has some passion. They don't get tired talking about it. They don't say, well, that's my 30 minutes of talking about boxing, so I'm checking out.
And George, you were right there when I contacted you. Yeah, I dig it, man. Yes, sir. It's like, wow. I was just humble. I said, I showed my wife. I said, man, George Jakovic, he's gonna, the guy that was on Drew's the other night, he's gonna come on my show, and he's excited. He's excited as I am about it. And Brian, man, just the energy that you throw out, and with Tim, bro, it's, what can we say? And if we can expand this and, get more boxers, what you just talking about Iran Barkley. I was on a panel with him one night, and Iran, he's looking for clients. He wants to train fighters. Bro, the internet it's a funny thing, all the brothers and sisters that come in here and just us talking. We do this anyway if we met. Like you said, you met Harold in the elevator. We'd probably still be in some elevator somewhere, bro, But,
you don't need the media to do this. We can do it ourselves now. That's what my thoughts of the corporate kind of gatekeepers are going.
When you take out the middleman, and that's what boxers should realize too, man. You've got direct communications with other camps here. Your management, you don't need any middleman. You can eliminate a lot of this stuff. Point A doesn't have to necessarily go to B, C, D to get to G. Bro, the internet it's a beautiful thing and it's a scary thing. But I think if utilized properly, maybe it'll get boxing in the right direction again.
Well, meetings like this, like we said before, it's incredible that you can literally pull up any fight, almost any fight you've ever heard about, and it's right there at your fingertips, and you can watch it. You can watch Tim Witherspoon fight Larry Holmes, and Tim Witherspoon, I think I think it was Greg Page for one of his titles. You can watch Tim Witherspoon fights, and you can learn about Tim Witherspoon. So, it's all right there at your literally at your fingertips. Any great fighter you've read about or heard about, you can see their
back
fights.
to the turn of the century, brother. To the turn of the century, right?
And you've got some minds on here too. You've got some people like Scrapbook Boxing and Curtis Anderson, Stormy. I mean, these guys know their history, and they should. Damn, I'm talking about Scrapbook Boxing. And here he is. He just jumped in, man. Shout out to Scrapbook. Anybody out there, I mentioned other names, but Scrapbook, he's forgotten more than any of us have ever known, man. Scrapbook is sub to Scrapbook's channel, you guys. Check out some of the documentaries he does.
I'm going to go to his channel.
Bro, he's been to those fights second row. All the fights we've been talking about, Scrapbook was there. George.
You know what? Scrapbook Boxing and I are going to be friends because on my YouTube channel, I do a show. It's called George's Boxing Scrapbook Stories. And the
Bruce, can you send me the links to the link to his channel? And
absolutely. After we get through, because I'm just, right now, my mind is going in so many directions. And man, having Scrapbook just come in here, connecting with you cats, bro. I mean, but you're gonna have to remind me though. You have
Scrapbook.
my number,
I
bro.
collected when I was a kid. I've got about 5 or 6 of these scrapbooks that I literally, boxing was on so much and it was in the paper all the time. So I during the pandemic, I I knew a little bit about editing. I learned how to edit, and I do a show where I will pick out a forgotten fight or a fight I remembered out of my scrapbook. My daughter, who's 13 years old now, she shoots it for me. She films it, and I do a 8 or 9 minute show on it. And the last one I did was Marvelous Marvin Hagler against Tony Sibson, which Bruce, you probably remember that fight.
I was at that fight. Worcester Centrum 1983, I believe.
I was going to say
Exactly.
you're pretty old if it was 18.
That's pretty old. I don't think it was 1883.
No. Hey, I've been rocking since about 6 this morning. I started smoking at noontime, bro. And like I said, I'm a medical marijuana patient. I've stopped taking 4 powerfully threatening and narcotic drugs due to the marijuana. I have arthritis in my shoulders that orthopedics tell me can only be cured with double joint replacement. And bro, I smoke a lot of weed, and sometimes I get the side effects that I get a little foggy upstairs, but it's all good though, bro. I can keep the memory together a little bit. But yeah, it was in the springtime of 1983 at the Worcester Centrum. I can't give you the exact day and month, but yeah, I bet Scrapbook was probably sitting in front of me there in the second row. Marvin Hagler and Tony Sibson.
I just pick those fights that certain smaller fights that I remember. And Frank the Animal Fletcher, another Philly fighter. I did a fight. I did hit James Hard Rock Green. Like even the nicknames back then. You had Frank the Animal Fletcher and James Hard Rock Green. That was a fight that was on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So Scrapbook Boxing. I'm gonna go to his page because I literally do a show of fights growing up that are in my scrapbook. And yeah, Scrapbook Boxing and I are going to become friends.
Look at Scrapbook. He was in the second row in Worcester. Goddamn right, man. Shout out to Scrapbook Boxing, bro.
Hey, don't remember now. I love Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I'm from Jersey. He was born in Jersey. He's from Newark.
Yeah, from Newark, but he was raised in Brockton. So
I get it, but he was born in Jersey.
But hey, that fight that you just mentioned, though, before I forget, James Hard Rock Green and Frank the Animal Fletcher, bro. You remember that? I think it was a Sunday afternoon, Atlantic City fight, man. Yep. Woo!
It was a great fight, and the Animal was this close. He was promised a Marvin Hagler fight. It didn't happen right away, and then Fletcher lost, and he never got that title shot.
Ron Roldan on the undercard of Hagler and Duran.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story about that fight. That was one of the few fights that I wasn't going to see because I just got married, raising a family. It was on a Monday night. I had to work really early, and it wasn't on pay-per-view. It wasn't on any cable outlet around here. But they just had wired the area for cable. And I'm going through with the clicker, going through the cables, and all of a sudden I see Frank Fletcher and Juan Roldan duking it out, and I'm like, this has got to be a repeat from ESPN or something. But no, the cable company somehow had forgotten to shut the streaming of the fight off.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was, and I'm like, if I'm where I'm at, the next fight is going to be Hagler and Duran, and I called up a Boz that I knew. I said, bro, turn it on channel 28 because you're not going to believe what's on. And even made the state paper that the cable company screwed up, and thousands of people had the opportunity to watch the fight for free. But man, I will never forget that story. People that came back and called me up and said, "Oh, you missed a great fight. You should have seen Duran. He hung in there for." I said, "Bro, it was on free on the cable company." No, and man. Till they bury me in the ground, I'll never forget that story. Great thing. The boxing gods were smiling up on me. I very, very seldom miss an important fight, even a minor fight. That one I had no way that I was going to go to it, and bango, dude! I had to just share that, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great story. But all those guys, and the Animal Fletcher and Hard Rock Green, and I mean. the sport, it's got such a beautiful history, you know. I just love it. I love talking about it. You know, and meeting fighters like I'm Brian. I'm pumped to connect with Tim.
Yep.
Just to talk. It doesn't just to talk to him. Period. Even off camera, just the stories that a guy like him has.
Oh.
You know,
And he's got endless. And just a note, if you go to our channel, we have Tim doing a commentary on Leonard versus Hearns with Hearns' sparring partner with Tim. They're both sitting, analyzing the fight and the insight, because you not only do you have the two-time heavyweight champion, but you literally have Hearns' sparring partner together. They're commentating on the fight. That's one of our newest videos that we put up. But yeah, I'd love to bring him on too. Dean, the Welsh Road Warrior. He was Tim's sparring partner. Hearns obviously can jump. The guy jumps some weight. He can take a beat and go away with the guys like Tim. He was Larry Holmes' sparring partner and a whole bunch of other people. I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge, and it's another guy. He knows Mitch really well. So yeah, he's another guy I'd love to bring on your show, and you know, stories are
and scrapbook. He saw Mugabe KO Hard Rock Green. Another all those middleweights, man. Those, you know, in the Hagler era, there was so much action in that middleweight division, bro. It was so rich. Dwight Davidson, Curtis Parker. Dude, oh, bro!
John the Beast Mugabe, like he made a name for himself, fighting every week. You know, fighting on the weekends, knocking everyone out until he faced marvelous Marvin Hagler. But man, Mugabe just and these were free fights on every weekend, and people knew who the fighters were.
And today you've got 4 guys walking around with a middleweight championship belt. But nobody's going to remember them in 5 years. We're talking about guys from, 30, 40 years ago, and it's fresh on our tongues because they were such warriors. I mean, they gave our hearts, they gave their blood. Bro, it was just a different era. Boxing was just talking about it like that. It kind of rejuvenates me. I'll probably have to do another half dozen hits on the Toke too, so I can level out and get some sleep.
Hey, there you go, man. I mean,
so much fun, bro.
you get pumped. Anyone who loves boxing gets pumped talking about boxing.
Yeah.
You know? Like Oscar Prince says, BBC got every fight on pay-per-view. I will be the first to admit I don't understand the business of boxing. I don't. Many fights that are on pay-per-view, they should be on Saturday nights, and they're not. So I don't know why.
The networks also used to stick a good fight in there on like a prime time event where I remember Dwight Davidson and Curtis Parker, middleweight elimination fight. They put it on a Friday night prime time, NBC free TV, and you know the idea worked. The blueprint is there. Why don't these companies just take a look back? You know, open the history books. These guys made a lot of money, man. These guys retired. Look at their net worth. You know, in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But no, we're gonna throw a pay-per-view fight together that maybe 20,000 people will buy, and just gonna give boxing another black eye.
Yeah, boxing takes a lot of black eyes, but you know, to be honest, it doesn't go away. It doesn't die. There's peaks and valleys, you know, in the sport. But people have talked about boxing's demise for years. It changes, but it won't die. I just hope that it gets better. I get all the streaming platforms. It's just a new day. It's a new way of doing business, and I get it. But I hope that you know, guys like Jake Paul. I hope that doesn't take boxing over. Jake Paul. The thing I like about Jake Paul is that a fighter like Amanda Serrano, and I think I talked about this the other night, Bruce. Amanda Serrano is an amazing fighter. She's got, I don't know how many titles, 7, 8, or 9 weight divisions she's won a title, and she's getting a lot of exposure on his undercards. That's what I like. What a guy like him can bring. That's what I like, and I try to focus on the positive that happens. And he's been a good thing for her. Whether or not boxing is going to turn into a bunch of YouTubers fighting, and those are going to be the biggest fights of the year, I would hope it's never going to get to that point. But boxing won't die. It just won't. It changes. It changes all the time.
What's
So
interesting too is the brothers there are exposing the young people to boxing, whereas probably was not a very prominent thing to that younger generation, and they're kind of exposing them to, this is boxing. They've seen MMA, but boxing is taking a back burner to the much younger generation. So hopefully it'll inspire some young kids he's got the one brother with 20 million plus subscribers, and then who knows how many other networks he's all over the place where people know him and see him, and he's going to fight Mike Tyson, but maybe it does that, brings the young people to come watch boxing.
I hope so. And Brandon
and
Blanco,
Tim offered to fight him, right?
Who?
He offered to fight. He put it out there. He told Jake, he says, I'll fight you. He wanted to fight him, but they never took him
listen,
up.
everyone wants to fight Jake Paul because you're going to get paid. And Jake Paul's going to be smart. He's going to stay away from anyone who can beat him. And I don't blame him. And I see Brandon says, when Pacquiao signed with HBO, what was your expectation of him? Well, when Pacquiao signed with HBO, he was early. It was early in his career. Way back, he fought Lenolo Ladwaba, who was, I believe, it was either 122 or 126 pounds, and Pacquiao became a star that night. He demolished him. And then when he fought Marco Antonio Barrera the first time and just, destroyed Barrera, it was pretty easy to see that Pacquiao was going to become a star. I don't think anyone expected him to have like a 20-year career. But yeah, he was young, but you could see that Pacquiao had stardom written all over him. See, Bruce, people they come on and they ask these questions and it's awesome. Someone said D-Ray Promotion says he's not fighting Mike Tyson, meaning Jake Paul. Of course he's not fighting Mike Tyson. Of course he's not going to fight Tyson, because Tyson's 55. Tyson would beat Jake Paul, and I know all the YouTubers say, no way, man, Jake Paul's awesome. Okay, Mike Tyson is a fighter, and he's going to die a fighter, and he's going to stay away from guys like that. And I think he's doing the right thing. Let him fight guys that he can beat, basketball players and MMA guys. Stick to that. Don't get in the ring with a real fighter.
It's just,
and I give him credit.
He's
got balls for fighting, for getting in the ring. Like anyone who gets in the ring, man, that's a tough sport. But he'll be smart and he'll stay away from anyone who can beat him, like a true fighter,
or who they don't have an agreement, like Mayweather. That was.
So looking at what that's doing for Amanda Serrano's career, that's a good thing. Then Jake Paul just fighting the MMA guys, the basketball players, just to bring more attention to actual fighting. Which I understand he does pay his undercard fighters well. They all speak highly. They all want to go back on Jake Paul undercards.
Right.
So that's if boxing has to do that to attract an audience, to keep the coffers full, then hey man, Jake Paul, good for boxing, bro. The Paul brothers.
And Amanda Serrano, what they're saying is she's going to fight Katie Taylor in Madison Square Garden, and they're both going to make $1 million each, which is amazing. Clarissa Shields just signed a big deal. I don't know if it's with Matchroom, but Clarissa Shields just signed a big deal. I love, we haven't even talked about women's boxing, and I just call it boxing. There's so many great fighters just on the women's side as well. But yes, Amanda Serrano has been helped by Jake Paul. And if she can get $1 million and Katie Taylor can get $1 million for a fight at MSG in April, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Do you want to hear something interesting? I don't know if did Tim tell you this? We're we're in the very, very beginning stages of talking about a fight with Michael J. White. It was put out to us that he wanted to fight a world champion, and and Tim says, "I'll knock him out." Yep.
No. I told no.
That's right. You talked to him. He says, "No, I mean, the guy's in shape, but I don't know if he could take me." He's still inspired. You see them sparring videos? I would not want to be in the ring with him.
Tim's earned his rest, bro. Tim got a lot to do. He doesn't have to get in the ring and hurt somebody, bro.
Yeah. Tim.
And they wanted to do Don the Dragon Wilson too. Talk to us, but I think that would probably be more. We would have to orchestrate that because Tim already said I ain't dealing with no kicks. So Don, we probably have to work it out. We won't knock you out. Tim won't hit you with one of those devastating overhands, and you don't give him one of them devastating kicks to the heads or legs.
Probably one of the most devastating rights in the heavyweight division. Period, man. When Tim was on, ask Frank Bruno.
Right when you're talking right hands too, Jeff Lucietta said Foreman versus Moore was a huge upset on HBO. I just talked about that fight recently. That was one of the best nights as a boxing fan I can ever remember because I thought Foreman had a shot to beat Moore, but as the fight unfolded, Moore he was a southpaw and the jab was just in George's face. And as the fight went on, like my excitement was high in the beginning. Round by round, George is just getting beat down. He's getting beat down. Come the 7th or 8th round, you're like, damn, I hope George doesn't get hurt. And then the 10th round, he hits Moore with that right hand. I remember I was watching the fight with my brother, Rudy, and we jumped up when he knocked out Michael Moore. We jumped up and we're hugging each other, jumping around because that moment, like you can't experience something like that in any other sport. I don't think just something like that in that moment. He was 45 years old and he became heavyweight champion. I mean, man, what a moment. And yes, it was a big upset, but wow. Like, just moments like that these fighters make that you never forget, that you never, ever forget. Oh.
And that was even more dramatic to me than Tyson and Douglas.
Yes.
Because Douglas was kind of dominating the whole fight. And seeing Mike Tyson get knocked out like that, it was like, whoa, he got beat. But seeing George Foreman getting pummeled the whole fight,
it came out of nowhere.
It was almost, we were feeling sorry for the fight, man. The old man's getting his face bashed in, and then all of a sudden that right hand out of nowhere. And was it Larry Merchant? He did it.
It was Jim Lampley.
Jim Lampley.
Tony said, "Yeah, it happened. It happened."
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
You don't forget those calls. This is going back. I didn't see the fight live, but I believe it was when George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier. It might have been. I was watching a Howard Cosell doc, but they had a camera on Cosell calling the fight. It was just on him, and he had the famous call like, down goes Frazier. Down. Howard Cosell, say what you want about him, but he was so into the fight, his whole body was shaking because of what just happened. And, you don't forget those calls and those moments. Man, what a sport, I mean, and again, in my memories, luckily, I remember them all. And I can remember Tim Witherspoon and winning a belt, and just it's a hell of a sport. And I just wish that the fighters were doing better, as they got older. We talked about this before, but I wish something was in place.
Well, maybe if we make a lot of noise about it, maybe a Boxing Vitals, man. Thanks for stopping in. Maybe somebody will hear it besides us. Because, man, I remember John McCain, bro. The late Senator John McCain. His heart was in boxing. He tried to get a pension pass. He tried to get a health care plan for boxers, but very few people besides John McCain even wanted to hear it. It didn't even make the Senate floor. And, when John McCain died, the whole idea, the whole concept of helping boxers, that kind of died with John McCain. And I don't know how many years that's been now, but It just it's like an afterthought. But maybe platforms like us, when the more we talk about it, maybe the word will get out there. That guy down the street, man, the entertainment that he gave us, and now the guy's living in squalor, bro.
Yeah.
That's our mission over here, man.
Remy, boy, I could get caught up in the comments because Remy said Remy was 5 years old when my father took me to see Hagler versus Hearns live. I wish Remy's dad was my dad, because you're 5 years old and you went to Hagler versus Hearns. Man, that's a. I mean, well, I don't know if it's good or bad for a 5-year-old to go to a fight, but I wish that was my dad. I wish I had a story about going to see Hagler and Hearns when I was young like that.
Oh man, it's like every fight. It's not just a fight, but the ones I went to, even the ones I didn't go to, we got these personal stories that we share them while we're talking, and and we'll go off on, and then maybe that night I brought a bottle of champagne home. I opened it up and I knocked my wife cold with just little things like that went along with the fight.
Right.
But that's just the beauty of boxing, because all these small things fit in, and especially when we hear these gems that former fighters tell us, and the things that Tim was telling us about the Ali Holmes fight that he heard, just these gems that they could only happen on the internet. Never in a million years, back in the past would we even get wind of these things. Never mind being broadcast out there. Where, I mean, dude, we're talking about Tim had a rough night with Bone Crusher, bro. Tim told us he threw the fight. He wanted to get out of his contract with Don King, bro. I'm not making any revelations, bro. Tim told us that on the show here.
Which is heartbreaking when you hear that, because it's so hard to become a champion, and especially to be a heavyweight champion. And when I hear stories like that, but that's unfortunately that's boxing. And Brian, you obviously know better than me, but I'm happy that Tim is healthy and he can talk and he can remember the past, because so many, I don't mean to be a downer, but so many of them can't. So, hopefully, but again, I'll keep saying it, that there should be something in place by the organizations to help fighters. But here we are in 2022 and it still hasn't happened. Yet they're still creating divisions. Like they got something called the Bridgerweight division. That's a new division. Guess why? Because they can have more champions and they can make more money. So they're creating new ways of revenue to get revenue, but they're not thinking about ways to help fighters who help them get revenue from the past.
Yeah. And you gotta hustle. And like I said, when Tim and I first hooked up, Tim's trying to get his money back. Like he's, especially with COVID over the 2 years where he made a little money here and there doing autographs and appearances, it all fell away for 2 years. So he was in a tough situation. But when we're doing things like I don't know if anybody's aware of the DKU fight that happened, and with this guy Bradley Scott. It's just one of these two YouTubers. Bradley Scott was a UFC fighter, big time guy, and this guy DKU was a Bruce Lee prodigy, and they did a match, and he made a ton of money. But we did some commentary on it, and now we're going to go over and do some YouTube videos with Bradley over in England. But I mean, these are the things you got to do. You got to get involved. It's entertainment. Bruce and I talked about that. The YouTube, these Tim making this transition. Now it's really about entertainment, and there's a lot of stuff that we'll be doing on the site. And for example, Street Beefs. They asked us if we would host the a Philadelphia version of it, and I know for fighters it's probably just an entertaining thing, but a lot of money in it. It's a way to build this channel, and these are the ways that Tim has to think now, just to acquire wealth, and that's the direction that he's on right now, is getting involved in the entertainment end of things.
Let me shout out to my handsome brother JC out there, bro. Salute to you, man. Thanks for stopping in, man.
You've got a loyal following, Bruce, and they stay, because we've been doing this for they stay and they
Yeah.
keep they stay. I mean,
God bless everybody out there, bro. You know, it's not because of me, man. It's because of you guys. You know, so rich in boxing history.
of course it's because
Brian,
of you. It's your show. Of course it's
you know,
because of you.
hey, man, all three of us, then, man. You know, we're like the Three Stooges. We'll take that right in the face by somebody, you know. And I thank everybody out there. And you're right, 2 hours. It went by fast. I don't want to hog up the internet over here, man. So you guys had anything you want to say to everybody out there, man? I appreciate it. I'll close it up after you guys are through. Let's start with Brian. Brian, you want to say anything out there?
Yeah, I'd like for everybody, if they can, reach out to me and Tim. You can reach out to Bruce. Let me know how you want us to design the channel. It is focused around fans, boxing fans. So if you have ideas, I'm always looking for creative ideas. We're trying all kinds of things. So if you go on there, you'll see we've done all types of commentary. Tim teaches on there and talks about stories. And so if people have an idea, I'm very open-minded and I'm willing to work with anything you guys have. So, yeah, be open with me and our channel will grow based upon you guys.
Thanks for coming on, Brian, man. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Absolutely, my brother. Peace.
Yeah.
And
look,
let me shout out to Unrivaled Boxing out there, man. Another good brother that's in here tonight. In fact, he asked me yesterday to ask you a question. Has there ever been any instances where technical difficulties have been a real issue?
well, really, more than technical difficulties, there's been plenty of fights where I remember, a guy's hands have to be rewrapped. So when a fight's about to happen in 10 minutes, it turns into an hour. I don't remember too many times where there were technical difficulties. What I remember as a kid, there was an HBO fight. It was Michael Spinks was defending his light heavyweight belt against Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. It was a rematch because Spinks beat Muhammad for the belt. And their fight, something happened. Muhammad didn't make weight, but the fight was still going to go on, a non-title fight. And then Spinks at the last minute pulled out. So they went on live and they had to say the fight is off. We're sorry, but Michael Spinks said he won't fight Eddie Mustafa Muhammad because he didn't make weight. So I don't remember technical difficulties ever really stopping a fight.
I remember that, bro. And Mustafa said the scale was rigged.
Right.
They went out and bought the bags of sugar, the 5-pound bags, to show that the scale. Oh, it was a horror show, man. Michael Spinks was sitting there sipping on a cup of Lipton soup, going, good. And Mustafa, he can't get down to 175. Oh, it was crazy. And no fight. They didn't even give us a non-title fight there. And I kind of almost never forgave Michael Spinks for that one, bro.
Yeah, they went on the air and they had to say, well, you were supposed to see a fight, but you're not going to see a fight. So, I was a kid for that one. But, yeah, it's mostly something with the raps. One of the most, and I have to tell another quick story, and people know this story, I think, but one of the most riveting stories was when Antonio Margarito fought Shane Mosley. And that's when they discovered that in the locker room, Brother Nazim, who was a great guy, he was Mosley's trainer, he discovered something was up with Margarito's hand wraps. And they changed the wraps. And I remember it was incredible that it was happening on live TV, that they discovered something in the wraps and they made Margarito rewrap his hands. And thank God Brother Nazim was in the locker room for that. There was a delay in the fight, and then Shane Mosley went out and just absolutely destroyed Margarito. And here's another one of those moments. I did a piece on that fight, a preview piece. So I was in Margarito's camp, then I was in Shane Mosley's camp, and Shane Mosley was training in Big Bear with Brother Nazim. And I can remember Mosley was a big underdog in that fight because Margarito had beaten Cotto. People thought he was this boogeyman of boxing. I just remember how confident. Now all fighters are going to say they're going to win, but Shane Mosley and brother Nazim were so confident about beating Margarito. And then when they discovered the hand wraps and there was a big delay, and then Mosley just went out there and just absolutely demolished Antonio Margarito.
Unbelievable night.
And,
Now,
and it exposed Margarito for what he did, because I believe 100% his hands were loaded when he beat Cotto in their first fight. And you know, that's the dirty side of boxing. But
now when they unwrapped his gloves in the locker room, didn't something fall out? Wasn't there like a little packet?
Yes. And here's the beauty about YouTube. You can look that fight up. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. Yes, something fell out of his wraps. And clearly,
big time, big moment of boxing, bro.
And clearly Margarito was affected because he knew that now he was going in the ring without concrete on his hands. And if you watch that fight, I mean, it was all Sugar Shane Mosley. Every minute of that fight was Shane
every
Mosley.
minute. Put a beating on him, really. And imagine what would have happened to Mosley's face if the fight wasn't rechecked. If brother Nassim didn't demand the glove that the fist be rewrapped. It's just incredible. And you guys with the cameras right there. It's nuts, man.
I was working that fight, but it was just incredible because you hear things on the headset. I would work live fights doing replays as the replay director, and you would hear, you know, something's going on because there's people that are in the locker rooms with HBO, and they would get on the headset, say, "Hey, something's going on. They're arguing about Margarito's hand wraps," and it immediately made air, and Larry Merchant talked about it, and Jim Lampley talked about it. And it was not a great moment, but it was a riveting moment that just all happened live. And you saw that whole soap opera happen live on HBO. And then you saw what happened in the fight as a result. And you're right. Can you imagine if they didn't find those bad raps? What could have happened? I mean, you're talking about you can kill someone. You can kill someone. So
now, do you think that gets fighters get away with that today? Because there's been accusations out there. I mean, let's face it. Tyson Fury was accused by Deontay Wilder of loaded gloves.
You know something? Honestly, boxing is so dirty and corrupt that nothing would shock me. You would hope that the commission is better at overseeing these things. Look, Deontay Wilder has pretty much said Jay Diaz was an amateur, and Jay Diaz was in Fury's locker room for that first fight and the second fight, I think, but definitely the first. He didn't seem like he was credible. I mean, if something was in the hands and he didn't see it, if the commission didn't see it, I do know I've been in a locker room with fighters, and when the guys are getting their hands wrapped, someone from the commission is always there. They can't leave the room without the commission going and following them. They can't just go here and there. The commission is always with them. So you would hope it wouldn't happen. But if evidence came out and they said Tyson Fury had loaded gloves, man, I can't say I would be shocked, because it's a dirty sport.
I'll tell you, the more boxers that I talk to, the more we hear these stories. And you know what they say? You know, if you hear it once, hey, you hear it twice, you start hearing it 3-4 times. You know, there's got to be something concrete to this, man. But anyway, bro, over 2 hours, man. I want to save something for next time, George, because, bro, you know, I think we blew it up tonight. I had a great time, man.
Me too.
I don't want to wear you out, bro. But the truth is, this 67-year-old Grandpa Simpson's ass is gonna take the dog for a walk, drink some water.
Okay, well, let it be on you, because I could keep going. I'm happy to do this anytime. And look, I would love for people to look my name up on YouTube and see what's out there. But more importantly, any of the fighters we talked about, 2 hours ago when we were talking about Matthew Saad Muhammad, look him up. Look up some of these fighters from the past. You'll be doing yourself a favor. I love the history of the sport. I love the present of the sport, the present day sport. But look up some of these fighters that we talked about and see, rather than hear us talk about it, see them in action and see how special they were.
Absolutely, and we're going to end it on that, Judge. I'm going to say a little bit of goodbye to people out here. I'm going to give you a buzz tomorrow, bro. Thank you so much for classing up.
Thank you,
joint,
Bruce.
man.
I appreciate it.
Peace to you, brother. Hey guys, man, I was pretty good, man. I appreciate everybody out there, bro. Absolutely, Stormy B, man. Man, it was a jewel, bro. You never know what you're going to hear out here, man. Bruce goes out here with the Toke too, bro. We talk boxing, we talk jazz, we talk professional wrestling, we talk health and nutrition. We talk about fine weed, which I'm going to end it on today. I'm going to do a couple of hits, man. My medicine over here, bro. Man, you guys, you humble me being here, bro. I got 50 likes out there, man. I think that's the most I ever had. But anyway, if you can do me a favor, bro, if there's any jazz artists you want to talk about, any wrestling show you guys want to talk about, any boxing thing that I can do. I mean, most of you guys know more about boxing than I do. But you want to talk about health and nutrition, let me know the topics. You want to talk about fine weed, we can drop a gem about weed once a month, man. I appreciate you coming. Everybody coming here, man. Bruce goes, man. I'm out of here. It was a great show, man. God bless.